I was assured that there were positive reasons why people were living there, and that for them, the balance worked. But we also have to remember that choice has boundaries. When people go, oh, we're person-centered, we support choice. Well, I hope so, but choice inside boundaries. And where are those boundaries? Well, the first set are imposed by society. Your provincial legislature, your federal government makes laws. You all got here by car. As you were driving along, did you notice those signs on the side of the highway? They're rectangular, they have black numbers on them. How many of you believe they are speed suggestions? Every now and then there's somebody with a car with flashing lights who suggests that, no, they're not just suggestions. So there are laws, and in most instances we are quite happy that they're laws, because the boundaries that they create are boundaries that help us stay safe, help create social norms. In fact, you have several laws in Canada that I wish we had in the U.S. I won't talk about gun control, but that would be an area. And there are also societal expectations. When you go to a social gathering, how you dress has to do with the expectations of the collective group that's coming. And when you don't meet those expectations, people talk. They're societal values. And they're your own values. They're things about what's okay for you. All of you are old enough that you have people in your lives that you do not trust, that you try to avoid, that you seek to not have present. And it is too bad that some of them are family. And some of you could tell us stories about how you have left jobs because trust was busted. And there was somebody in a position of power and authority that you simply couldn't stand to continue to be around. And that is one of the issues that we have to look at. When you hate a situation, when you can't stand a situation, you vote with your feet. You leave. In many instances, the people that we support, when they hate the situation, they express it with their behavior because we are not listening to their words, and they get a behavior program, or they get medication, whereas you get belief. And there is this ripple effect, because choice creates boundaries. The choices that you make create boundaries on other choices. So where you live, who you hang out with, the work that you do, all creates boundaries and trade-offs. And finally, there's that boundary that's created by money. Have any of you noticed that you haven't entered into the most lucrative field? That one of the trade-offs that you're making is that your income is capped way below those people who are doing things like hedge funds way below the, what they talk about in the US as the 1%. Trade-off. Could you stand working in the environment where all that money is made? I would guess for most of you the answer would be no. And there's also your own definition of risk. How many of you either have or want to, as in on your bucket list, go skydiving? How many of you want at some point go skydiving? How many of you think those are remarkably foolish people? So each of you has your own definition of risk. Each of you says, oh, this is worth it, this is not. Some of you probably have already jumped out of that perfectly good airplane and said, that was awesome and I can't wait to do it again. Others are going, oh, there's just no way. I would have to be very drunk. So we need to think about how this applies to us and then how we translate it where we have power over, where we are making those decisions. And we have to remember that there's also quality versus quantity. There's actually some material written about this. You can offer too many choices. Too many choices are actually overwhelming. And we actually narrow the number of choices that we are confronted with routinely. There's that classic guidance counselor when you were a kid who's saying, and what do you want to do when you grow up? And you're going, no clue. Too broad a question. Or now, the cereal aisle in the grocery store. Have you noticed that there's an entire aisle of cereal? So here's an assignment for you about choice. Do be careful how you do it because you could be perceived as a stalker. They do not cruise the entire aisle. You and the rest of the folks who are shopping go to that part of the cereal aisle that contains your interest. So if you're into the healthy stuff, you're into the granola section, and you're looking at 4, 5, 6 choices and making one from that. What matters to you then becomes, you're looking at the sugar content. You're trying to figure it out. Now, if you have young kids, you're also going to the chocolate section of the cereal aisle. You're trying not to look at the sugar content because it's most of the cereal is sugar. But if you notice, even if you're shopping for a family, you will go to 2 or 3 different sections. You won't go to the whole aisle. It's too much. And quantity doesn't matter if none are desirable. We got any vegetarians in the room? No. So what if I took you, I'm going to take you to the gourmet butcher shop. 267 choices. There's not only cow, there's buffalo and elk and rabbit, which sounds much better in French. Lapin sounds better than rabbit. But all of those choices, and you would be probably, depending on how dedicated a vegetarian you are, I could probably make you ill. Or at least disgusting. Because none of those choices would work for you. And one of your challenges is in many cases, when you really explore what somebody wants, you go, we don't have that. So how do we develop it? If it's reasonable, How do we develop it? My first trip to Ottawa, so I don't know your housing market, but I would guess that there's some part of Ottawa that you might like to live in that you can't afford. True in most urban areas. Well, so there's some things that would go off the table for anybody. But in many cases, people are asking for something ordinary, typical. And we just need to figure out how to do it.